again, it goes right back to the craft mindset. A craft person is only as good as their tools. It doesn't mean if you're shitty that tools are going to make you great. But if you're good and you understand what you're doing and you have the option to use a better tool, you're going to get even better results.
Welcome to the Hairpreneur Show, the show that teaches you, the hair pro, how to work smarter so you can make more, work less, and live a purpose-driven life on your schedule, not your clients'. I'm your host, Ryan Whedon, and each week I'll teach you awesome, actionable ways to tap into your personal greatness. Through marketing, mindset, and confidence training, it's time to unlock the next level of you. Let's grow. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Hairpreneur Show. I'm Ryan Whedon, your host. Today I'm excited to have somebody in our industry that is, I would like to say, big time. He's the founder of an incredible company, and you've heard about it. You've seen it all over Instagram, and if you're not a craft hairdresser, you should strive to become one. Today we have Gerard Scarpaci. Welcome, Mr. Co-founder of Hairbrained.
Thanks, Ryan. Excited to chat.
Yeah, I'm very excited to chat. I've just met you pretty recently, and I felt really complimented when I actually made it to your page, when I did some work and it wound up on your page, where it's just something that it's inspiring, because you talk about being a craft hairdresser, and for sometimes balayage can look really sloppy. and a lot of times I'll do things that the application might look really sloppy, but the result is breathtaking. So I feel like it was nice to be on there and be recognized, and thank you for that.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I mean, your work is great. And the industry is so broad and so diverse that you can only judge things by the end result. I think there's so many different processes and so many different ways to get there that if you really want to judge, you got to judge on the end result.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, this whole craft movement, you started, I think you were the one that actually started the hashtag for craft hairdresser with Hairbrained. And before we actually get into Hairbrained, what do you think makes a craft hairdresser?
Our industry, again, as I said, is very diverse. There are people who get into it because they're people, or they want to make people feel better or feel beautiful, or they like the social element. I think a craft hairdresser, and they might not even know it at the beginning, but they actually just love the work, working with their hands and always striving to create a better end result. Like, that's number one. Like, all my clients can love me, I can make a ton of money, but if I'm not happy with the quality of my work, I'm miserable. Where I can be, and this isn't always good, but I can be really happy with the quality of my work, but not be making a lot of money, and maybe people don't enjoy what I'm doing, and I could still be happy. And that's just me personally, because it's really, I put the work first before anything else.
I can absolutely relate that to acting, where I was an actor for a couple of years in New York City, actually. I know you're from Brooklyn. I was an actor, and there are so many actors that will do it for their entire life because they just love acting. They will starve, they will go from job to job. And that's when I realized I wasn't an actor. I wasn't willing to do that. And I feel like if those people would be craft actors, they're doing it because they absolutely love the work, they love the process, and they're doing it because it feeds their soul and makes it sing. Where if it's not doing that, if you're in the hair business and you're not continually growing with intention and purpose and focused on the quality of your work over and over again, then maybe you don't fall into that category. It doesn't mean that you have to be a craft hairdresser, as you said, but it takes that intention to really want to be the best you can be.
I think what's great about hairdressing is you can do whatever you want with it. And I don't look down on anyone that gets a license and makes money. If you want to do it in the weekend in your garage to make a little extra money to pay for your kids' baseball camp, I can respect that. But it's up to the individual. And I think, it's the same, like you mentioned acting. Well, we could talk about plumbing or electrician. If you're a real craft plumber, you've spent years going through a journey of learning all these different things, working with different masters, learning and growing and getting better. Or you could just I do some plumbing at home too. If I have a leaky faucet, I can fix it, but it doesn't make me a craft plumber. That's just my analogy.
Right. Now, Hairbrained, is this something that you've had in your mind for a long time? When was it actually released to the world?
I've just been fortunate that from the beginning of my career, I was around like-minded people. I started off in a terrible cosmetology school. I ended up having horrible experiences and probably could have quit the industry. But there was one person in the school who said, you should meet the owner of the salon I'm working in. He's looking for apprentices and assistants. And she organized for me to go in and meet him. His name was Vince Smith. Still has a salon in downtown Manhattan. I think he's just celebrated his like 35th year in business or something like that. And he put me on the right path. And I realized really quickly, just like anything, it's who you surround yourself with. So, the origins of Hairbrained were in building a community of like-minded people in the real world. Vince, even though he trained me and I could have ended up working for him, he turned me on to Vidal Sassoon. And he's like, it was like a dream of his to work there that he never did. And he kind of turned me on to it so that I went and interviewed and got a job at Sassoon. So now, not everyone, in every group, you're not going to be all like the same mindedness, but I found a small group. The people that I trained with, was an apprentice with, were Tracy Sakasich, Julian Perlingiro, Christine Zelinsky, Lena Orojo, and then this group just grew and grew till there was 15 people who've all gone off and done incredible things in the industry. So to me, the real birth of it was like literally within my first year, realizing that who you surround yourself with, your network. Unfortunately, we don't use the word social network much anymore because, we got kind of the wool pulled over our eyes, and now it's social media because on media you can sell ad space. Networks don't have ad space. So originally it was a real world network, then it was a social network, and now it's social media.
Right. That makes sense. It is really important about who we surround ourselves with. And whenever I talk to people that get these have work with people that tell them that they're not good enough or that they shouldn't do this or shouldn't do that, I always say, as you would, I'm sure too, just don't listen to those people. They're not important. There's no reason why you shouldn't be surrounding yourself with people that support you in your journey and should be happy for your successes, not trying to hold you back.
It's good to be challenged too, though. That sometimes supporting your journey can be challenge, can be, competitiveness. I can't say that I wasn't competitive with the other assistants that I trained with, who then mostly became stylists at Sassoon and educators, and we're still competitive, but with respect as a network that, supports each other.
Great point. Great point. And I think, like myself, I think if I heard correctly, that somebody in cosmetology school, maybe an educator or a teacher, told you that you would never make it. Is that right?
That is a true story. I had no experience with hair whatsoever. And I was, I think, the only guy in my class. Not that that matters, but most of the girls in the class had experience doing their own hair. There were, it was a very diverse group, and they all had, I didn't even know when I started school, I didn't even know the concept that you could make curly hair straight by blow drying it. I'd never heard of that. My mother always wore short hair. I'd never seen anyone get up and blow dry and style their hair. So I had no idea. Everything was just like, what? Are you kidding? And, I also wanted to be really good. So, the roller set that we were learning took me like half a day. And I kept taking it down and redoing it. And the teacher came over and told me, oh, you'll never make it in this industry. You got to be fast, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And I didn't last much longer. Like I said, in cosmetology school, I actually ended up doing an apprenticeship in New York, and I got a barber's license. I took the barber test rather than the cosmetology test.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then you got into Sassoon after that, right? And then you were Sassoon
got
trained.
Into Sassoon after that, and they at that time, they still had barbers. There was a barber shop. Actually had integrated, but there were still 4 or 5 master barbers of this 100-person staff. So I was able as a barber to work with them, but you didn't have to just do men's hair. So as a barber, you could also cut women's hair, which was great. And then with Sassoon, I became a teacher. I moved to California, became a teacher in the original Santa Monica Academy. And that's where I got my first cosmetology license. I had to go through all this training and go and take the tests, which I failed numerous times. It took me 3 times to get it.
Did it really?
Yeah.
Wow. I was just thinking about, you're talking about taking tests, and I was thinking about driving tests. And I also I'm throwing out a bunch of random topics here, but you just recently learned how to drive. Is that right?
Well, that article might be old. I'm 49. I'm 49. I got my license when I was 38. I grew up in New York, and mass transit was awesome, and I never really had a need to drive. When I moved to California, I was very involved with being at Sassoon, and the rest of the time I was very involved with smoking marijuana, and none of the things about driving appealed to me. So I lived 2 blocks away from the academy. I would just walk there. I would work. I would walk back home. So I'm probably one of the only people who lived in California for 6 years or so and never had a car or a driver's license. Although I eventually had a girlfriend with a car, so it kind of worked out. And then again, moved back to New York and had no purpose for a car until I was about 38. I got into a place in my life where I could actually afford one and all that good stuff, and I did it.
Right, right. Well, and you were born in Brooklyn. What part of Brooklyn?
Born in a park called Bay Ridge.
Bay Ridge. Okay. I lived in Williamsburg. I was there for a couple of years actually 1 year there, 1 year East Village when I was there in New York. Absolutely loved the city, the energy, everything about it was just incredible. And I love visiting it. I was there actually, one of the catalysts for me leaving was 9/11. And I actually saw that happen with my eyes. I saw the towers fall and it really made me look at my life and am I really passionate about what I want to do? And that's when I decided that acting wasn't for me and I got to go back to the drawing board. And then I ended up finding hair. But segue, but New York, man, I remember visiting Williamsburg years later and how much that is just, it's incredible now. It's like the city.
It's changed a lot. It's interesting that you mentioned 9/11. I had just moved back to New York 2 months before 9/11 to open a salon and opened my salon in June, right before September 11th. So I had a brand new salon 6 miles from the World Trade Center that was 2 months old. And, I think a lot of what I learned about business and marketing and growing a business came from those tough times of, I thought, okay, well, I'm in a busy place. There's a lot of traffic outside. People are hustling and bustling to all of a sudden people being in a complete state of shock. And that lasted, it's interesting. The rest of the world, obviously it's a tragic event. People see it and then they kind of move on. But when you live right there, it takes a long time. It probably took 8 months just for the mentality of people to normalize. And with a brand new business, 8 months with literally zero in the bank account, I put every penny I had and opened the doors with a zero balance in my bank account. So
those are the times we look back on now. And it's just, we never want to go back there, but we appreciate that where we are now so much more when I was bankrupt at one point in my life. And to know that you can get through something like that and then create something awesome out of that.
Well, it breeds creativity. Up to that point, I never realized I'd never owned my own personal computer. I never had an email address. And I realized that all of a sudden there was this thing called email marketing that was basically free. All you had to do was get the emails, and that was my first, foray into the world of, I hate to use the word marketing, but just connecting and growing a business. Because I'd sent out postcards and did flyers, and that didn't work at all. And it cost money. Literally postcards are expensive. It was like 31 cents per card for postage. Plus you had to make it, print it, pay a designer. You had to buy a list. They used to, I'm sure people still get them, those value pack coupon. Those guys, they sell mailing lists, but they're not cheap, especially back in 2001. So I'd bought a mailing list, sent out all these postcards, and had zero return on investment. And I was like, oh, shit, there's got to be a better way,
Right. So, yeah, email marketing is a big part of what you do. And for the listeners, if you don't really understand what marketing is, I'm sure you would agree with this. Marketing it's kind of like a nice way of saying selling. We hate to be selling things, but marketing is selling. And that's what we do to reach our target audience.
I also like to think of it, so first of all, I really prefer permission marketing. So fortunately with Hairbrained, what we've been able to do over the years is gather enough people's contact information that want to be contacted. The last thing, if someone's not wanting to be contacted, they can drop off. They don't have to be a part of it. Although the ultimate goal is a conversion, before that, to me, it's about creating awareness and just letting people know. Because people want to know, like, oh, that there are great combs available. Oh, that there are great courses available. I don't go into it always with the mindset of making the conversion or making the sale. I go into it with the mindset of informing, inspiring, educating, connecting. Then every once in a while, when you kind of ask at the end and you say shop now, I think people feel a little bit more inclined to shop now.
Right. And people like you and I are trying to actually solve problems, and we're relating to those problems. We've been there. And you and I, you don't sell everything. You sell things that work. And I'm sure you've used and trust all of those brands that you sell, and they work and they've worked for you. And, this has worked for me. Hopefully it'll work for you too. I understand where you're at, and I'm here to help solve your problems so you can have the results that you want to get. Yeah.
That's the mindset right there. That's the mindset. And I think we've always had this thing where hairdressers don't like to sell. It's like a typical thing that's been like plastered on our industry. And it's just the mindset. We do like to inform and educate and inspire. And if you just think about doing that, even the simplest thing as a product recommendation when you're working behind the chair, I never thought of it as selling. I just thought of it as, informing, teaching, connecting, and caring, to be honest. I actually really care. I've been around literally thousands of hairdressers that have garbage combs. Like the majority of hairdressers still use crappy equipment. And I don't blame them. I blame the fact that, number one, there isn't a lot of great equipment. And number two, a lot of people haven't communicated the importance of the equipment, because inevitably 99% of the time when people see the option and feel it, and even though it might be a little bit more expensive, the quality's there. You can feel, oh, well, this is $3 more than the one I normally get, but you can feel it and you can see it in the performance.
Absolutely. Well, when students come to my classes and I see the brushes that they're using and I look at this and this brush that they're using, I'm like, you can't balayage with that. I couldn't balayage with that. I could do okay. I could make something. I could play with it, but I'm not going to create great work with this.
Again, it goes right back to the craft mindset. A craft person is only as good as their tools. It doesn't mean if you're shitty that tools are going to make you great. But if you're good and you understand what you're doing and you have the option to use a better tool, you're going to get even better results.
Right. Now, with your emails, do you have a team that does that, or is that something that you do personally with the copy and everything? So you're the one, you're the copywriter.
You're looking at them.
Awesome.
Right? You're looking at them. I mean, we have help. Obviously, we have a graphic designer, but we bounce things around between the whole team with copywriting. But ultimately, it's me, something I've headed up for a while. We've all worn different hats. At one point, we used to just do one email a week, and we did that for years. We sold nothing via email. We promoted nothing via email for at least 6-7 years. We just sent out what was called the Sunday News, and this is prior to the explosion of sharing on Instagram. So we had our original platform, which was a desktop platform called Hairbrained.me, which is now an app and has a mobile version, which is still very much alive. But this is where people went to post their photos because there was no Instagram. And then we would curate them once a week and we would send it out in an email. So it was recognizing the talent, connecting people. And I used to just write like a little blurb in the beginning. I got my little writer fix from doing that. And, we did that for years until it kind of saw its course. When you had this instant gratification of Instagram, we didn't need a weekly email anymore to say, here are the best photos of the week. And I think, we had earned the right to begin to promote other things.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I think about too, I'm sure you send off a lot more emails now, right? Maybe several a week, depending on what you're trying to let the audience know about, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, it still is. I mean, if anybody's listening and they're trying to figure out marketing, we've got all these fancy things of social media marketing, paid social media, influencer, everything. The best thing is still email. It really is. And I don't see that changing. I'm looking into SMS now. I'm a little behind the curve on it. We probably could have shot on it a little bit earlier, but I just didn't feel right. But now it feels right to me. So we're looking into building the SMS messaging.
Well, that's an easy transition. You already have the brand. You already have the respect. So that's just another way to reach people and like, oh, hey, by the way, there's a training today. I don't want you to miss it. Check it out. I mean, and of course, the greatest thing is, about SMS is that you never ignore a text. Like it's almost impossible to ignore a text. Email, sure, you can send an email and it goes to spam. It might be lost forever. But I used to always worry about with email marketing, which I'm sure a lot of people that are trying to build an email list and maybe even come up with their own email strategy is, you don't want to get these unsubscribes. Oh God, it's like that rejection, that unsubscribe. But you know what? You start to learn you want those because you're actually going to get more of the people that are your supporters.
Yeah, absolutely. As you get more into it, you can segment and you can tag your list, and you can try to make sure you're sending the appropriate thing to the appropriate person to get less unsubscribes. If you're just blasting everyone all the time and you haven't segmented the list, I mean, if someone is a colorist and somehow you've been able to determine that all they do is color, you should be able to tag them and segment them so they only get color information. Easier said than done. I can't say that we nail that 100% of the time, but you're absolutely right. I'd rather people unsubscribe than get something that they don't want, but there are also ways to help figure out that they get what they want.
Mm-hmm. And as your Hairbrained, the one you use now is Hairbrained, not Hairbrained.me anymore, right? Or is it Hairbrained.me still? And
we still have several properties. I mean, we've got Hairbrained.me, and the Hairbrained app is still the continuation of the original community. And it's still alive and kicking. It's got a great international, there's about 70,000 users. About 70,000 people have installed the app. And there's still an active community. It's a lot of people still share their photos there that maybe aren't comfortable with the Instagram world. They don't want to be trolled or judged. We still get a lot of that, people sharing. We do a lot of polls and questions, and it's just a little bit more, I think, of a safe space. Then, of course, we have the hairbrained.pro. That is our online tool store. And then we've got hblive.me, which is our online academy. So there's still 3 separate properties. It's just a technological issue to make it all one that eventually I'd love to tackle, but it might cost a fortune because all of these properties, they're built on their own platforms, which are like, SaaS platforms, software as a solution, rather than custom coded.
Right. So are these platforms, is it is it WordPress or is it Shopify?
Yeah, Shopify, WordPress, MailChimp, Mighty Networks. We've used every single one of them. And that's the thing, from the beginning, it was like, very, very low to no startup cost. That's the world we live in now. And I know your podcast is called the
Hairpreneur Show, like a hairpreneur, like entrepreneur, hairpreneur.
You know what I always liked was Cilantropreneur.
Cilantropreneur. Well, that's a mouthful. That's harder than hairpreneur.
Yeah. Yeah. But at this point, if you have an idea and you have a tribe, you can start all kinds of things basically for free or very, very low cost, $14 a month. You can get your first platform. What happens is, if you're going to scale, you have to be prepared then to invest.
Right. Especially with the email platforms.
Yeah. Yeah. If I had an extra $1 million right now, that's probably exactly what I would do, is just custom code everything.
Yeah. We've got a same kind of issue. We're hosting our website, which is really pretty and everything. And that's on Wix. And my wife created that a long time ago. And of course, I would rather probably use something different than Wix. But I mean, that's her space, and I'm just going to leave that alone. And I've got my online program, Balayage Online, and that's on Kajabi. But right now you have so many different moving parts, and from somebody that is growing their business and has a lot of moving parts as well, you need a lot of manpower because you can only put yourself in so many situations, and I'm sure you want to stick around in that lane, that your zone of genius where you're best serving the community. So how many people do you have now, and how many different teams? What does your infrastructure look like?
We're six people, 6 full-time people. We've got myself, Randy Taylor, who's the co-founder, Gordon Miller, Amy Dodds, my wife Kelly, and MC Marie-Claire Bazant. Randy mostly and MC focus on video production and capture, photo, video. Gordon mostly deals with brand relations, and Amy and Kelly work on social media. And then I do a little bit of everything.
That's awesome. Huge accomplishment. Yeah. I love to watch you grow, and I love to it's such a staple in the industry now. And I think it's incredible. So congratulations on all that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, I feel like we just have still so much to do and so much further to go. So I'm, super excited about the future, and, really excited to get back to live events because, it was always a something that I believe is magical. And, although we're a completely digital company and big supporters of digital education, social education, I still believe that all of that is in support of the live event. I don't think an online course will ever replace a hands-on class. I think it complements a hands-on class. It's like, just because I listen to my favorite band's MP3 doesn't mean, oh shit, I don't want to see them live. I could just listen to them here. I kind of figured that out from the beginning, where people were like, oh, don't give away. Why do you do all these Facebook lives? Or I'm like, well, it helps the educators grow their business. Oh no, once people see it, they'll never take a class. And I found that to be absolutely the opposite. I mean, I could be booked with classes every weekend of the year for the rest of my life. And because of how much I've personally shared, on social media.
Right. Anybody that watches a Facebook Live and feels like they learned everything they could and doesn't have to take a live class.
I wouldn't want them in my class. Yeah.
Exactly. They don't have that student mindset anyway. Cool. I feel like you and I both, like people like us, have to take time to, as we're growing our business, to stop and reflect and look at, wow, we've really done a lot. Because I'm always looking ahead too, and I'm like, almost there. But you know what? You're never going to be there. We're always going to be growing, but we're never going to be until we stop and say, look back at what we've accomplished. That like, this is cool. This is very different. You were broke. I was bankrupt. People told us that we wouldn't be successful in this industry. I'm right there with you, and it's just cool to watch people do the impossible. Or what people said was impossible.
Yeah, right on.
And I think it gives hope to other hairdressers that have those naysayers in their life, that feel like they don't have opportunities, but they have mentors, people that will tell them, you know what, people aren't always going to give you what you need, and very rarely is somebody going to put their hand out and say, come with me, right? You have to create your own opportunities. So I think as we close the show here, I would just love if you could give a couple of strong pointers, a couple of lessons in your life that you could give to somebody that's stuck, that's burned out, and doesn't feel like there's a future.
Totally. I mean, I'll say, and one of the people I've always taken inspiration from is Gary Vaynerchuk. And, one of the messages that he constantly, first of all, the guy's just so consistent. So there's a message right there. You want to be successful at anything, you have to be consistent. We sent out those Sunday news emails every Sunday, no matter what, for years. And we were just consistent. We knew that the key to success, one of the many keys, is consistency. So first, be consistent. And second off, don't give a fuck what anybody else has to say. Because the honest truth is, we value too much other people's opinions. You have to be true to yourself. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have a small circle of people that you really trust and you take their word from. But that's a pretty small circle of people. Outside of 3 or 4 people, not to say the rest of the world is your enemy, but the rest of the world, what they think doesn't really matter to what you're going to do or not do, and they don't necessarily have a valid input because they don't really even know you, so just be consistent. And if you want to get something accomplished, and partner and align with a small group of people that really, have your best interests at heart. And not to say people are evil, but most people, they have their own best interests at heart.
Absolutely.
So take your own best interest and push it to the side to put someone else's interest in front of it. Is a very small group of people.
Very small. But those are the ones you want to hang on to and appreciate fully.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thanks for being here today. It was great to pick your brain and get to know you a little bit better. Gerard, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you.
Yeah, right on, Ryan. And congratulations on all your success. And, just keep doing what you're doing, making a difference for hairdressers.
Back at you, buddy. I love hearing from you. And by the way, have you subscribed to the podcast yet? Oh my gosh, if you haven't, please do so right now, because there's so much cool stuff ahead. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, because it would be much cooler if you did. Plus, I don't want you to miss any of the new episodes I'm dropping weekly. Last thing, if you haven't checked out ryanweeden.com yet, there are some great freebies on there that I want to give you. So go ahead and check it out, ryanweeden.com. Thank you so much for listening. You are awesome.